Come on, John.
Come on, John, let's go.
We're not
We
on
want
lawyer
to get out
time.
of
We're
here.
not on lawyer time.
Go ahead.
Whoa.
Oh, easy.
Slow down.
All right, good evening, everybody. I call to order the MDC Water Bureau. I guess this is a special meeting.
Yes.
Um,
We're all special people.
And I understand that at this point in time, we don't have a quorum. Is that correct?
Correct.
Mr. Clerk?
We're one short. We're expecting potentially two other commissioners, so hopefully someone will join us shortly.
Okay, so I will pass over item 3, approval of the minutes.
Two first.
I'm going to get back to, I'm just looking down the agenda to see what we won't be considering. I guess we can talk about items 4 and 5, but can't take any action on them. Is that correct, Mr. Clerk? Okay. All right, in which case, let's move on the agenda then. Item number 2 is public comments relative to agenda items. Do we have any member of the public who would like to comment?
Judy Allen, West Hartford. Oops, I'm on the wrong page already, but I was looking at the report for the water revenue, and I'm not sure I'm reading it right, but anyway, there's a section for industrial water sales, and I would be interested in, and perhaps in the future, breaking down that rate to include revenue for industries that are getting a discount or some sort of break in their water. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Any other public comments? Hearing none, I'm going to pass over item 3 for the minute. Move on to item number 4, consideration of potential action, reabandonment of water main, 458 Windsor Avenue. The administration going to comment on that?
No, Mike Curley's gonna give us a little update on that.
Mike?
Yes, thank you. Mike Curley, Manager of Engineering. June 18th, 2024, we received a request from the town of Windsor, the town engineer Suzanne Choke, requesting the abandonment of some water mains that were left behind when Windsor Avenue and Deerfield Road were realigned. And believe it or not, this happens a lot. So in the process of reviewing their plans, they requested that we keep a small portion of the main so they could tie in the new restroom facility, which you can see on the map. I apologize, that was left out of your package. And so the total amount of mains will be about 200 feet in total. At this point, by doing that, kind of gets rid of some old infrastructure we have on private lands, which will be impacted by the construction of the parking lot that they're proposing as part of the park revitalization. The elimination will pose no hardship or be an imposition to others, if there's any questions.
This is Windsor.
Town of Windsor, yes.
Oh, and I do want to mention that we are going to, for any parts of the main that were remaining, we're going to be requesting an easement from them so that they can make that connection that's on the map. That completes my presentation.
Can we go back?
Thank you. Do we have any questions from commissioners?
If somebody comes in. Yeah, okay.
Any commissioners have questions? I have one question. Is there a cost associated to the MDC for the abandonment of the water mains?
I would imagine there is a small cost. They do have to mobilize out there, dig up the main and do the cut and capping. So yes, there would be a cost.
Is that cost passed on to the town, or is that a cost that we just typically accept?
It's our water.
I would imagine it's.
If I may, the MDC would be paying for that cut and cap. The only problem with the cut and cap, so any utility, or sorry, any customer, town, home, business, if they choose to abandon a service that is serving their property, and the request is to cut and cap, and we do cut and cap that service, if the town ever decided and wanted a water service to go back onto that property, they would have to pay for 100% of that service cost. I would, and Chairman Curry made a point in the audit review, and this is just for our own staff, in keeping track of abandonments. So in the audit, we show, new water mains by mile. But we would like to break that out to show, we abandoned 200 feet, but we added 1,000 feet this year. So that way we're not just showing the total, but we're showing what was abandoned and what was added in terms of linear footage or miles of pipe.
If I could just follow up for a quick second on that. Do I understand, though, that the pipe that's being, the main that's being abandoned used to run under the road? And it's only left there because the town moved the road?
Correct.
They-
So
Abandoned.
they realigned that intersection. This happens from time to time. We were not informed, otherwise we would have requested easements for this main so we have access to it. And we would have requested that from the property owner, which in this case is the town of Windsor. But that was not done.
Any other questions, any commissioners? We do not have a quorum, I take it.
Chairman Adel had actually texted me, and he's having trouble with the WebEx link, so I'm sending him the link right now. So hopefully he can join us.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, Mr. Myrtle, can you also send it or text it to Commissioner Lewis as well? Do you have her phone number, her cell? She said she'd hop on as well.
Okay, we'll pass over any action on this matter for the moment. Move on to item number 5, consideration potential action regarding granting of easement in New Hart to the Aquarium Water Company.
Sorry, Commissioner Lewis just joined. So we have
Oh.
a quorum.
We have a quorum. Okay, do we want to go back then and take action on number 4? Do I have a motion?
Move adoption.
Second.
Any further discussion on item number 4? Welcome, Commissioner Lewis. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, moving on to item number 5 then. The granting of an easement in New Hartford to the Aquarian Water Company.
Move adoption.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
We'll get a second first, then we'll do.
Second.
Second, okay, yes.
Thank you. Chris Levesque. I received a phone call from Aquarion a number of months ago. They had purchased and took over the ownership of New Hartford's water system. And the town of New Hartford had a lease agreement with the MDC, I guess dating back 40 some odd years, when they built their well system to put water tanks on MDC property. As Aquarion took over that asset, we basically need to transfer the lease to Aquarion. My suggestion was to, one of the challenges with leases, especially that are forever, is we forget over time, and it's very difficult to keep track of these long-term leases. So the logic was move forward with a easement, one-time payment, similar to, we were not going to charge Aquarion what we would charge, we're charging the town, because obviously the town is a nonprofit, Aquarion is for-profit. So we applied the same rate structure we have for all of our easements, and that's what's in front of you tonight. And Chris Levesque, Chief Operating Officer.
Yeah, Chris Levesque, MDC. Scott went over most of it, but we did utilize the template that we used with Ski Sundown for that permanent easement and utilize that calculation method to apply the acreage that Aquarian was asking for. Just one minor difference is with what New Hartford had with that lease, Aquarian seek to have a little bit bigger area to work with that tank, so we applied the additional acreage into that calculation as well. So, and it's off of Route 219 on Industrial Park Road. That's the access that Aquarian utilizes to access the property. I don't know if anyone had any questions.
Questions from any commissioners? Commissioner Mandike?
Thank you very much. If, it was reported, if I'm not mistaken, that Aquarian could be sold. And I'm just wondering through you, Mr. Chair, how does will the lease be assumable by anyone that may purchase Aquarian?
Ask our attorney that question.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris Stone, District Council. The easement runs with the land, and so that anybody that takes over the ownership of Aquarian, whoever that might be, would assume
Assume the
their rights and
responsibility.
obligations pursuant to the easement, so it follows.
Thank you very much.
Any other Commissioner Curry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Curry. Scott, I just wanted to be sure I understood what you said. Did you say that we're going to charge Aquarian less because they're a for-profit?
No,
More.
the town was paying us less than $1,000 a year, 600 some odd dollars. So no, we said you have to pay the going rate, which is, we weren't going to give them a state deal. So
Okay.
it's a 42,000.
Yeah,
Dollars.
just under 42,000.
And so, but the nice thing about the easements are we get paid up front. We don't have to worry about billing every year. It's just, on an administrative level, we don't have to deal with reminding ourselves to send out a bill.
Thank you.
Other questions from commissioners? I have a couple of questions. How much area is involved?
Just under an acre.
Okay, and the easement is to allow them to actually place some physical structure on this slightly less than 1 acre?
The structure's there right now. They're going to be utilizing that area. They just wanted to get out of that lease agreement Scott mentioned into a permanent easement. They look to expand it just to have a little more working room in case they ever had to do any major rehabilitation to those tanks, just to provide some additional room. So to Scott's point, we don't have to keep on going back and forth for temporary construction easements, those type of things. So they just took it upon themselves to seek to increase the size of that easement area.
Does the easement limit them to only using this area for these water tanks?
Yes, it's exclusive for access road, tanks, and water piping.
Thank you. I see Commissioner Desai, question?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there any obligation on part of MDC to maintain the structures that are being conveyed or as part of the lease? Like tanks, any roadways, or whatever is involved with this lease?
No, Aquarian would be obligated to do all the maintenance of any infrastructure there and address any issues that resolve from any activities they have on site as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any commissioners? All right, I believe we already have a motion made and seconded. All in favor of moving this forward?
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Moving on to item number 6 then. This is a discussion regarding emergency interconnection with the Town of Cromwell Fire District Water Division. Is that you, Scott?
Yeah, no, well, thank you, Scott Charleston, but Dave Banker is our senior project manager who's going to give a presentation.
Okay.
So Dave Banker, Senior Project Manager. Thank you, everyone. Before we start, also, I'll just do a quick recognition. We have some folks from Cromwell here. I don't know if you want to just shout your names real quick. Sorry.
Certainly.
Hello, everybody. My name is Roger Hart. I'm the Executive Director for the Fire Commission. This is Joe Palmieri. He's our Operations Manager for the water. This is Chuck Ellsberger. He is our consultant.
All right, thank you very much. Approximately in 2021, Chuck approached us. They're doing some work for the town of Cromwell. This is all driven by Cromwell has one well field that supplies the town, so it's a single source, multiple wells. But if anything ever happened large at that facility, there's the potential that the town would be out of water. So they're reviewing the different alternative connections for utilities surrounding Cromwell. Zoom ahead to the current date. John Myrtle received a letter from them on, what was it, April 26th of this year. So they are interested in pursuing an emergency interconnection with the district. So an emergency interconnection is one where basically we're not going to get a diversion permit from DEEP. We're not going to guarantee them a chunk of our safe field, like a block of the water sitting in Barkhamsted and Epaug reservoirs. It would just be needed in a time of emergencies, in which case, since it's an emergency, we'd get a declaration or approval from DPH or DEEP, and then that diversion could be made on an emergency basis. So as I touched on, I reviewed this matter with our hydraulic model back in 2021 when we were looking at the alternatives analysis working with them. And then we determined, I might touch on this after, but we can provide up to 1.5 million gallons per day on a max day or a peak day, and then 2 million gallons per day on an average day. And we weren't affecting any customers. Our limitation was just that at the point of connection, our pressure dropped by 20 PSI. So that's our limit when we review any connections. And to date, we've also provided them with an estimation of the monthly charges based on the customer service charge, non-member town charge, as well as fire service charge.
Dave, what is that number? Do you have that in the presentation?
What those charges are?
Yeah.
So it depends on the water service size and meter together. For like an 8-inch on 8-inch or 8-inch main connection with a 6-inch, it's around 2,000. And then when you get up to a 12-inch main with a 12-inch meter on it, that's around $4,500 a month. So it depends on the exact size of the service that is selected.
And then any water that's used would be metered as everybody else and paid for, right?
Yes. Yep. Treated just like any other customer. So on the screen now is a map of the location. So it's all on Cromwell Avenue, basically where Cromwell Avenue and Rocky Hill meets the town line between Cromwell and Rocky Hill. The water is coming from our largest high service area, which is the Vexation Hill high service area. We're looking at a one-way connection to Cromwell. There's the option of working with them on a two-way, but we have talked internally and we're just interested in providing the one-way connection. And as I touched on, the flow that we've agreed that we can provide them is 1.5 million gallons per day on a peak summer day, or 2 million gallons per day on a average day. So the path forward right now, continuing our discussions with Cromwell and their consultants. They're looking at reviewing their design alternatives for the meter pit connection. So we'll continue to work with them to look at those, as well as the piping which will occur directly around the meter pit, ensuring that it'll meet our standards and what we'll need to be able to do testing in the future. And then once we are ready to move forward, then they'll just follow the standard water service connection process. So it'll be a permit pulled from our utility services group. Right there. So that's all that I had prepared for the board today. Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Good questions from commissioners?
Yes, not that it would happen, but what would happen in an emergency situation that impacted our entire system? In other words, not that it could, but these stranger things have happened. What happens in terms of our obligation to provide water to Cromwell? If, for example, our system is under stress, do we have to continue to supply that? Or is it a proportionate reduction or what have you?
So if you know, we absolutely can't provide the water, then we won't be able to provide the water. I mean, but in general, I mean, like if we were having some type of issue with our pumps or otherwise, I'd still expect that we could work with them to, if there was a, you know, an additional emergency on their side at the exact same time, we would just coordinate with that to try to, you know, provide what we could provide without, you know, starving our system of water.
And one other thing, is there any possibility of contamination from their system getting back into our system, or is that engineered out or whatever, however you folks look at that?
So there are, you know, check valves provided so that the water can only go in one direction, so that that will protect our system in the event of you know, when the meter pit is used.
Okay.
Other quick, Commissioner Gardo?
Yes, thank you. So this is a discussion point. So what are the next steps for this type of situation?
Is that to you or is it?
Well, Dave can answer that, but I think he already mentioned it. You know, there's a lot of, a little bit of engineering left to be done on this. The town has to really decide, you know, is the expense worth the risk? You know, so they have to make those business decisions. Could be $4,000 a month for them. So there's a little bit of engineering work, and Dave, you want to add to that?
There'll be some engineering work. There'll also be, we will have to, you know, basically pass the design through DPH to get their approval on it as well, so that they can make sure that both sides are protected and it meets their standards.
Thank you.
Commissioner Curry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Curry. I just want to follow up on Commissioner Taylor's question. At the beginning, you said that this would not negatively affect our safe yield. So if, for example, we had extreme drought conditions and our safe yield disappears, then what alternatives would we have in terms of supplying or not supplying water to Cromwell or to other entities that maybe we have similar situations with?
Mm-hmm. So if there isn't a contract guarantee, then it still is you know, basically there isn't that specific guarantee there for the provision of water. So, you know, there's still, it's still up to us to agree on the use of that water. And then at the same time, since there isn't a contract or a diversion permit with DEEP, it'll be a discussion with DEEP or DPH. Then it's also a discussion with DPH at that time as to whether or not we can supply the water as well.
Okay, so then, Mr. Chair, I guess my part two of that question would be for Attorney Stone. And can there be any parameters set within the contract that if such an extreme condition exists, that we have the ability to not provide water?
Sure. Simple answer is yes. I mean, you can contract.
Okay.
Anyway, you know, as you see fit, but I guess.
I realize we've never been in that position.
Yeah, I don't want to weigh the chances of that happening.
Climate change is crazy today, so you never know.
And if I can add to that, Mr. Chairman, you know, so we are mandated by our DPH, our state water plan. So anytime we have drought, we have to follow a very strict guideline of what we do and how we do it. And it outlines, you know, what we do under certain circumstances based on percentage of the volume of the reservoir. So to Dave's point, you know, we would follow that. And if it was in such a condition that we had to restrict flow to our customers or to industrial or in this case to an emergency connection or a contracted wholesale connection, we would follow the state water plan exactly the way it's outlined.
I'm guessing that most commissioners, if not all, are unaware of what that plan entails.
Yes.
And certainly I don't want to give the impression to you guys from Cromwell that I'm opposed to this, but we also have a responsibility to look after the water that we have for our customers. So, and we're looking at extreme conditions that hopefully would never exist. But I would hope that as we move forward with this, we would get some language that would better fine tune that within any contract we have with any connections such as this.
And-
I'll take that as a commissioner's request for the next time we discuss this, to have that information present.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, we were required, really since 1990, whatever the date was, 99. The safe yield we've always talked about, we were required to recalculate that based on the Colebrook Reservoir agreement to abandon that 10 billion gallons. We did complete that exercise. We will bring that to this board and basically be comparing 1999 to today. Two calculations from two different consultants. They're basically almost identical, except for some additional criteria on evaporation that was required, that wasn't required in 99. So we're within less than a million gallons a day from 77 to 76. But we will bring that back to the next Water Bureau, and we can talk about the drought conditions and how those drought conditions are applied under the state water plan.
Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Curry.
Unless there's objection, I would like to table this.
I don't think it's here for action today.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, good.
Other questions by commissioners? I have one question. In the materials that we received, it talks about a prolonged supply disruption. And it sounds as though part of this is to satisfy the water needs of Cromwell if there were a prolonged supply disruption. I'm just wondering, that doesn't sound like, that sounds more long-term than it does emergency basis. So I'm just wondering, is there some universe in which we could end up supplying Cromwell with water for 6 months or a year or multiple years?
So I'll open up to them as well if they wanted to mention any comments, but the focus is around their single source of supply. So they have that one well field site with multiple wells. So if something happened on that site to catastrophically, take out the site or potentially poison or contaminate those wells, then it could be a prolonged issue until they can get the new treatment online, or get an alternative in place.
So it could be a forever issue if those wells were not usable.
I mean, yeah, potentially. Huh? Yeah. Yeah.
That's why he should have sat at the table.
First of all, on behalf of the district, I'd like to thank you for entertaining this, and you have some great questions. And I want to thank Dave. He did a great job presenting the information. The one thing that I did want to say is that, the district is looking out, or the district being Cromwell Water, is looking out for their best interest to try and make connections. But there are also 2 connections to Middletown. So they understand that they wanted to have some redundancy in the emergency water supply, so that they're going to have 2 connections with Middletown as well. So, understandably, if you're in a drought situation and you can't satisfy the needs of your customers, the district would understand that they can't be fed at that time. As Dave accurately said, the Gardner well field is on the Connecticut River. It's a great well supply, and it's been in place since the early 70s. But they're just looking to have some redundancy in their systems in case something happens. The other reason why they're looking to have this improvement made is that they're one large reservoir. They only have 1 storage tank. It's been in place since 1970, and DPH wants them to take it offline to make repairs, and they really can't do that unless they have a redundant supply. So it's kind of twofold, the request. God forbid anything happened to their Gardner well field, they would want some backup supply from Middletown and the district, but also that they need the ability to be able to shut down that reservoir and have that redundant supply just in case for anything that exceeds their maximum day for fire protection and peak hours. So hopefully that addresses some of your concerns.
Thank you.
Yes.
Commissioner DeBella?
John, through you to staff, what's the difference between Portland and what is being requested here? Service Portland, similar.
Yes, Scott Jellison. So Portland is not a an emergency connection. It's a diversion permit. So they have a wholesale agreement, a take or pay wholesale agreement. They must take at least 400,000 gallons a day, up to 1.1 maximum of instantaneous maximum, whatever that term is defined as in the contract, as 2 million gallons a day. So they have a contract. They have to take 400,000 gallons a day, or they pay that amount. Yes, and so that is a completely different agreement. That diversion permit process is a public process which has to go through the public hearings. It's a whole different animal.
Just an emergency.
This is just an emergency connection. There's no commitment on either part that they're gonna take it or not take it. And because it's an emergency connection, with the support of DPH, it doesn't require to be taken off of our safe yield calculation. So our safe yield calculation is 77 million gallons, 77.1, minus all the contracts we have, wholesale contracts, 6.9, something like that, which leaves us with 67 million gallons of water to sell. And we basically are using 44 on a daily basis. So we've got about 20 million gallons of water a day that we could sell to somebody under our safe yield. And even with the new calculation of the safe yield, which drops it under a million gallons to 76 point 4 or 5. That is basically theoretically the same number, but the new standards say you have to calculate evaporation differently than it was done in the past. Yeah, so, but it is a whole different animal. And they've just explained some of the emergency connections we have across the district.
So we have, well, the other presentation would be nice for this one. I haven't highlighted, but there's connections to Connecticut Water around Bradley Airport. There's two up there. There's an emergency connection to New Britain in the vicinity of the mall, kind of just down the road where the Barnes and Noble is, around there. Berlin Water has a connection where they have a guarantee of 500,000 gallons a day. They don't use it, but their pump station and such are set up so it's there for emergencies. If their pressure drops, it kicks in and it starts taking the water from our system. Thank you. And that's it for the piped connections. There are also some locations where we have one of our hydrants, and then we have another, water company's hydrant, basically 50 feet down the road, so we can make a connection from hydrant to hydrant in the event of an emergency.
Other commissioner questions? Commissioner Curry?
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. And other than the diversion permits, all of the emergency hookups have no impact on our safe yield?
Yep, because there's
none of them.
They don't have a contract that guarantees a certain amount of water per day, so there's no safe yield guarantee. So then we're not carving out a block of Barkhamsted Reservoir for those folks.
Okay. Thank you, Dave.
Okay, so is it fair to assume then that this item is going to end up coming back to us at some point, having taken into account comments heard by commissioners today and ultimately for some action here?
Yes, we'll come back. We'll talk about the safe yield in the next meeting. Hopefully, some of the engineering and decisions by Cromwell District will have materialized, and we'll bring and report back to the board for sure.
Thank you. Any other comments on this item? All right, moving on to.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry,
Yes.
I do have one question. Based on the conversations we've heard, I guess my question is, why is it not the town of Cromwell that's asking for this versus the fire department?
So the town of Cromwell owns basically the town fire district water department. Is it? What's the? Yeah.
So the fire department and the fire district are one and the same, or the water district. We are the same entity. We are separate from the town. So we have a fire department that levies taxes, and then we have a water division or water district that is able to bring in revenue through the sale of water.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Any other comments? All right, shall we move on then to the next item on our agenda? which I think we just started in some respects. Item number 7, a discussion intrastate connectivity of water systems.
So, David Banker, Senior Project Manager. Good to be here. So in previous board meetings, we talked about kind of interconnections and then what were the abilities to kind of connect to those utilities around us and what some of those barriers are. So I just want to have the map up here to show. If you look to the west side, I've labeled out Talcott Mountain. There's a really big mountain. We have a couple tunnels for our raw water that bring it from the other side of the mountain over to Reservoir 6 and to West Hartford filters. On that side of the mountain, there's Avon, which is provided water by the Connecticut Water Company Avon division. North of that is Aquarian, but basically since the mountain's in the way, we can't really interconnect between our two utilities, and there's a large distance because of the mountain, and it's just a barrier because of the elevations. You're going against gravity to try to provide water in those directions. To the north is Connecticut Water with in the vicinity of Bradley Airport. So we have a couple interconnections there. If you look across the river, there's South Windsor. We had an interconnection with Connecticut Water over there as well. They had requested it to be cut off, so that was eliminated. And then there is Manchester, shown in kind of that minty green color. So we don't have any interconnection with Manchester currently. And then if you go south, Glastonbury, everything along the eastern side of Glastonbury, basically it's large distances before you get to anything substantial. Going down south there, the other green color, that's Portland, where we have an interconnection to supply them. Jump back across the Connecticut River, it's Cromwell, who's here with us today. We talked about the potential for an emergency interconnection there. And then over from there, it's Berlin, where we have an interconnection that's existing in the vicinity of Raleigh Street along the Berlin Turnpike. And then next to that in the green is New Britain, where there's that interconnection in the vicinity of the mall. So really, looking around us, the closest utilities are Manchester and Cromwell, who we don't have interconnections with. And Cromwell is discussing the emergency interconnection right now. And actually, Manchester has begun to look at the potential of an interconnection with the district as a result of PFAS that they've had in some of their well fields there. So those two discussions are basically ongoing or starting at this point. So when you look at the map, basically for the area directly around the district service area, there's not a lot of potential for additional interconnections, and there's not so that is a limitation. I just wanted to make clear with the map. So also, what are some of the reasons why these areas might not want an interconnection? Some of the towns may not want to have a large water supply. Sometimes they want to try to limit development so they don't get large condo or townhouse complexes coming in. They want to try to keep it rural. So that's one of the things that we've seen in some of the surrounding areas. And then also, Scott's always tried to get Portland to buy all their water from us, but there is the retail cost of the water. So if the surrounding utilities have a well field, it may cost them pennies on the dollar for the electricity to pump the water out of that well field, another couple pennies on the dollar for the chemicals to treat it, versus a full retail cost of $3.80 per CCF currently. So it can be a large difference between the cost to produce water from a well versus the cost to buy water from an interconnection.
Well,
yes. Yeah, Commissioner Taylor.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is an item that's on the agenda because I had suggested it. And I guess I want to be very careful here because this is much narrower in its scope in terms of what I was concerned about. And let me tell folks again. And I'm smiling because there are a lot of sort of secondary issues here that I won't go into. What I was really concerned about here is that if you look at the state of Connecticut, we have a number of problems that are emerging with regard to water. One, a lot of the areas have wells that are either polluted or that are drying up. We have areas where basically water is a real issue. I mean, look at the southeastern Connecticut. they can go into a drought very quickly. My concern or thinking here was, and this was really on the state level, and somebody like the Department of Health, not the MDC, I think should be looking at the entire state of Connecticut and making some kind of assessment with regard to its water plan as to what is the ability, if that is an issue that people think is worth considering, what is the ability, what is the capability of moving water around the state if there is a situation that may arise? Given climate change, and given that when you think about it, there are really only, two really big games in this state in terms of water. One is us, the other one is regional down in New Haven. You know, other people have wells and reservoirs and things like that. But, you know, you look at Glastonbury, they've got uranium that's popping up in their wells. And PFAS. And the fact of the matter is, those folks basically may be stuck in terms of the ability to sell their homes. So that there are, you know, a range of issues there. And I just think that on the state level, because I don't think that's our nickel. I mean, on the state level, someone should be looking at this and looking at it very carefully and making some kind of determination. People may decide we don't want to be bothered with it and let the chips fall where they may. And if you're stuck with a house in Glastonbury and you got a well, okay, but the water won't pass muster, you're just stuck with it. I don't know, but I think someone should look at that and make a decision. And I think that that ought to be on a state level. Once again, I'm not saying that that's something that we should be doing. I mean, I think we can be looking in terms of our franchise area. But I think on a broader level, in terms of state policy, I just think that that's an issue that someone should be looking at. And someone can say, oh, forget about it, we're not going to be bothered. But at least we've looked. Because as sure as we're sitting here, some suburban community is going to get into trouble because either their wells are polluted or they run dry and then they're stuck there. And basically, folks are going to have water to live. Now, you know, you can only deliver water in water trucks so much. The best way to get it there is through piping or interconnections. And that's all I was really concerned about or focusing here.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor.
Yeah, if I may, and I did report this at I think it was the May meeting, it might have been the June meeting, but I think it was the May meeting. So to your point, Commissioner, myself and the other three largest water utilities in the state, Connecticut Water, Regional, and Aquarion, we did meet with DPH's commissioner to talk about these very specific things because, as you know, the state went through an exhaustive state water plan starting in 2014, right after we chose to bid on the Yukon water proposal. And the diversion of water across the state, just like for Portland, brings out lots of animosity amongst the environmental groups because of the transfer of water from water basin to water basin. So the state water plan clearly spent 3 years developing the procedures and policies for the state of Connecticut and how this is achieved. And so we have to abide by those. But to the point, your point, we did say, and Glastonbury is a perfect example. Portland's a perfect example. East Hampton's a perfect example. We said to DPH, we need your help. The town needs your help. The interconnections, one thing about PFAS, the recommendation from DPH to solve and address PFAS contamination is to interconnect with other utilities. And what we said in that meeting with the commissioner is DPH needs to figure out a way to help fund those interconnections because East Hampton did not have $40 million to extend the water main from Portland to East Hampton. Deep told us in public hearings back in 2016, sorry, can't help you. They said the same thing at public hearings to Glastonbury. So we had a lot of discussions about this, and the commissioner of DPH committed to looking at those things proactively because this is going to be the PFAS well contamination issue is going to become a much bigger topic over the next few years. Manchester is just an example. We started talking to Manchester in 2008 about drought conditions, and we actually did a proposal to bring them a water line down. By Wickham Hill. And yeah, thank you. And then they said at that time, sorry, we don't need it because that connects to our well system and we don't have a problem there. We have a problem in our reservoirs. Now they have a problem with the wells with PFAS. Portland's going to have a problem with PFAS. Aquarian has problems with PFAS. Connecticut Water has. So there is going to be a lot more discussion that's starting to happen. They only have 5 years, Dave, to address PFAS in their system.
I don't know.
I think it's 5 years they have to start addressing PFAS. And Aquarian's on record saying this is going to cost them $200 million to filter their system. So it's a big deal, and it's going to grow, and it's going to grow very quickly. But we have been meeting with a lot of our wholesale agreements, trying to see if they're interested. And at this point, they're not. But the PFAS issue is just getting started.
If I may, this sounds like you've just moved into
Right.
discussion item number 8. So are we really kind of discussing all of these things at the same time? Yeah. Commissioner DeBella, you have a comment?
Just to follow up with Scott saying, South Central is before the legislature right now in a special session talking about the acquisition from Northeast Utilities. I'm sorry.
Eversource for
Eversource, yeah.
For the water system.
Aquarian.
Aquarium. And they've got a major water problem. Aquarium does. But South Central has no PFAS problem. So that might not be a bad mix from a state standpoint.
I'm not sure Aquarian. I don't want to talk about water utilities and their PFAS problems. But
Yeah, we're not here to gossip either, so let's stick to MDC. What concerns the MDC here? Commissioner Curry?
Thank you. We've had these discussions on the interstate connectability of water. I'd like to change the tone of conversation and talk to the Manchesters and the Glastonburys and about becoming member towns. If they want our water, I would welcome them to sit at the table as a member town and divide our ad valorem costs by 9, 10, or 11 instead of by 8. And that would assure them that they would have our water. And I would also say at some point, as the water levels and our safe yields are decreasing, at some point, it's going to be on a first come, first served basis, because at some point, MDC may be at the position where they're going to have to say, we're full, we're done, we can't take any more, we can't give any more.
Other commissioner comments? Was there further discussion to be had on this topic number 8, wholesale water agreements and rates?
if I may, Mr. Chairman, and this is just an extension of Chairman Curry's point. We've been talking about this issue about how we do wholesale rates today and how we do rates today and how we should be doing them in the future. And this is a perfect example of if Manchester or anyone in Portland's about their contract expires next year, if someone comes to us, the traditional way at the MDC in doing this was Portland, as an example, they take or pay 400,000 gallons a day, and then they can go up to 1.1, and they can instantaneously go to 2 million. And that's a diversion permit, and they pay only the meter charges and all the things we talked about earlier, but they also pay just 400,000 gallons a day, unless they use more. But what we have done is we've given these entities part of our safe yield for free. So they can go up to 1.1, but they don't use it. And the same thing happens with other utilities where they have wholesale agreements. We have the same problem with Connecticut Water in Unionville. They use 775,000 gallons a day, take or pay, and they're at the valve every day to make sure that they moderate that, make sure they hit that take or pay, but they can go up to 2 million gallons a day, and it's that delta is safe yield coming off of our 77, and they're not paying for it. It's free. So our position is we can't continue to do that. We're going to have customers, and PFAS is going to be our customer. And to the chairman's point, we need to start saying when we do these wholesale agreements, besides rates and all those things, that we're not going to sell our safe yield for free. It's got to be if you want 400,000 gallons a day, you pay for it. But if you want up to 1.1, you got to pay for it. That's a discussion that we're going to have with Manchester. You know, when Manchester says we need X, whatever X is, we're going to have the same discussion that we just already had previously 3 months ago with Portland. When this contract expires, we've already told them the board is considering changing those kinds of structures, uniform rate structures, and the wholesale structure of our safe yield. So that's a kind of a big discussion that we can talk about, or we can save it for another day. But we are going to need Water Bureau and full board to make decisions on those types of policies for the future.
Isn't PFAS
Commissioner DeVella?
going to be a public health issue?
Well,
That's the basis of what PFAS is a public health issue.
yeah, what we have said, Commissioner, what we have said to DPH is, I'll leave it to the doctors to decide if PFAS is a public health issue. But what they have and need to do for us as utilities is they need to give us support on the public side to educate the public on what is the risk. It's very dangerous to tell people the sky is falling, and we've said this, and I said this in my meeting. I don't see anything from DPH regarding Teflon pans and don't scrape your eggs with a metal spatula because there's more PFAS in a Teflon pan than there is in your water. So we said, that we need EPA and we need DPH to give some structure to this conversation. But it's, they've already set forth and they've said you've got 5 years to figure this out, and it's going to be very expensive.
Stay tuned. Commissioner Taylor?
Yeah, I guess one of my questions, what do we do in a situation where, for example, we sell water to a private company and, across the street, people are getting our water and they're getting it for $3.
Yeah.
And on the side where the private water company is, they're getting 10,
This is where the WUC comes in. We talk about the Water Utility Coordination Committee that's mandated by the state legislation for the state water plan approved in 2016, whatever the date was. And that tells you what you can do and can't do, and it tells you this is your exclusive service area and this is yours. So we can agree at the state at the WUC level, which would involve DPH and a bunch of other stakeholders. If South Windsor, for example, which is a perfect example of that, Commissioner, that this side of the street is South Windsor, Connecticut Water, and this side is MDC. If we wanted to take over that, they would have to be willing to relinquish it, and we can't take it from them.
Franchise.
Yeah. So, but for example, the airport is a perfect example. And if you read the documents, which I have numerous times in the 1960s, as Dave mentioned, we could serve the airport right now with all of their water, with our interconnection. But we lost that political battle in 1967 when the state gave the contract to to Connecticut Water, and we got the sewer side, which was great. But yeah, we have exclusive service areas, and we can't infringe on anyone's service area unless it's mutually agreed to under the WOOC process.
Sounds like this is an area that's going to be in high flux over the next,
Yes,
over the next
absolutely.
couple of years. And that this is going to be an ongoing subject of discussion here at the Water Bureau. Other commissioner comments at this stage tonight? Any suggestions for whether this stays on the agenda or comes off the agenda and comes back on in some different fashion, waits for another request? Commissioner Curry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would request that recommendation be made to Chairman Adel that a special committee meeting be held strictly with the one topic of wholesale water agreement rates, which would kind of morph into some discussion on the other issues that are tied to it. But I think that when administration puts together a package that they can present to us, it's going to warrant a special meeting with nothing else on the agenda. And I might also encourage, maybe we might want to invite other towns to come in and, I won't say participate, but to listen and hear and understand what MDC is, the concerns are, and maybe what their concerns should be down the road.
I'm not sure Commissioner Adel is still on with us, but we'll make sure that these comments are passed through, certainly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other comments on either item 7 or 8? Should we move on then to item number 9, a report summary of water main breaks? And who are we getting a presentation from on that?
Chris Levesque, Chief Operating Officer.
Chris Levesque, you're up.
Chris Levesque with the MDC. Just to go over last month's May of 2024, we did have 6 water main unplanned leaks that we did repair. That average is down significantly over the last few years. We're trending below our 5-year average pretty significantly. We like to contribute that to the amount of water main we've been replacing over the last 5 years, trying to hit that 10 miles per year mark in our distribution system. And we have been seeing results on that as that number has steadily been going down on leaks, especially emergency leaks, which helps us reduce our operating costs, specifically on overtime to address those leaks.
Sounds like excellent news. Commissioner comments, questions? Commissioner Curry.
Thank you, Chair. Just a comment. A few months ago, there was an article in one of the papers. The number they used, I just thought was unbelievable. It was something like 2.4 water main breaks every minute across the country. And I'm thinking about MDC, and we must be doing something right, because we have one of the older systems in the country. So I don't know. It was a strange number.
Yeah, and a lot of what we're doing is, I know we discussed it in our strategic planning presentations that we had, I want to say about a year ago now, is we're tying in some of our asset management program and where we're replacing water mains, tying into town paving programs. So what we have is a sort of a set number of dollars we can spend per year with our capital improvement, but we can increase the amount of volume or the amount of water main we replace when we're sharing those costs and making it more efficiently used with our towns. So if the town DPWs are replacing pavement on streets, we'll try to get in earlier, replace our water main so we can share costs in the pavement. And we're doing that similarly with our sewer infrastructure as well. So that's part of our paving program that we're trying to coordinate to cut costs, both for the district and for the member towns as well.
Other comments, questions? Seeing none, close the book on number 9 and move on to number 10, year-to-date water revenue.
Kelly Shane, Chief Administrative Officer. This is a standing agenda item. We provide this report each month, and it's just year-to-date water revenues. I will say this report is through May, and it's a very detailed report on all of the water revenue accounts. Year-to-date, straight line, through May, I'm sorry, not year-to-date, through May, that's 5 months into the year. We're about at 41.7% of budget. As far as water revenues, I do want to remind everyone that water revenues is a cyclical kind of thing, and summer months, especially hot summer months, are going to be where we see the higher water revenues, water sales. So we anticipate to catch up on that percentage difference this summer. So we're pretty close to where we were last May on sale of water. We're at 97.3%, just slightly under where we were this time last year on water sales. So nothing to be concerned about, and looking good to where we were, to where we are in relation to our budgeted numbers for water.
Thank you. Questions, comments from commissioners? So I take it the $3.7 million difference is nothing to be concerned with in terms of revenue drops at this point. That'll be made up by the cyclical nature of it. Is that the idea?
The 3.7.
I'm looking at your May year-to-date, year-over-year, 2024. Total revenues 42.2 million versus last year 45.9.
Yeah, because it's only January through May. Well, yeah, May over May. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about that at all right now.
One other question, the very last entry.
Yep.
Fund contributions.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain the difference? Last year there was $4 million, but it looks like 1.1 is the more average number.
It's not, fund contributions are, what we put from the budget, in '23. We brought over for the 2024 budget, we're planning to bring over, more fund contributions, in order to keep the water rate at the water rate that we chose to keep it, consistent. We didn't raise the water rate. We brought over some fund contributions from our prior year's surplus in different funds. I know Bob would explain it. Bob Barron, if he were here, would explain it so perfectly. The sum of the part to equal the whole. I'm not as good as explaining that part, but we just brought over more funds from prior year's budget, prior year's surplus. In 2024.
This is essentially use of prior year surplus or fund balances to keep us within budget.
That's what it was for, yeah, for the 2024 budget, yeah.
But we can give you a specific answer, Bob. We can
Yeah,
answer that question on the one.
yeah.
All right, no, I got it. Thank you. Any questions by any other commissioners? Any comments? Okay, we'll close the book on item number 10. Item number 11, opportunity for general public comments. Do we have any general public comments? Nobody online.
Judy Allen, West Hartford. Something Commissioner Taylor was talking about and Scott talked about a little in terms of the state looking at some of these issues of interconnectivity. It was an issue in the state water plan, and there are groups that are looking at implementing those kinds of things. So there are groups that are studying this and looking at it. And I believe MDC has representation on some of these groups, work groups. So there might be more information there. And in general, there are lots of groups out there doing some of the things that MDC seems to think you have to do alone or for yourself. There's you don't want to duplicate services. You want to look at who else is out there doing this that we can join with or learn from, so you don't have to be reinventing the wheel all the time. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the general public? Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll move on to commissioner requests for future agenda items. I know we had lots of discussion tonight. Anybody want to add anything at this point? Any commissioner requests for future items? Hearing none, we'll move on to everybody's favorite item, item number 13. Move to adjourn.